All right, what's going on YouTube? So today's video is going to be something that I honestly cannot believe I'm giving away for free. I'm going to be going over my exact blueprint A to Z on how to get completely shredded in just 90 to 120 days. So not only is this the system and process that I use for myself, but it's also the one that I use for all of my clients, and it has been proven to work time and time again. Because when it comes to losing fat, it's completely calculated. Like if you just take out all of the guesswork and just calculate everything and be very meticulous, track every single variable you can, it is absolutely unreasonable for you not to make the most amount of progress you ever had. That is kind of the system, or that is kind of what I'm going to be going over in this video here. So I will say though, before I get into everything, that this video is not going to be for the people who just want to watch brain rot content. Like this video is going to be very valuable. It's going to be a lot of like good information thrown at you. It's not going to be very quick, flashy, not a bunch of edits. It's just going to be literally me on my computer going over my exact process A to Z, how you can implement it yourself and see some of the best results that you ever had. So with that being said, I will see you guys on my computer here and we will get into every single detail. So hope you enjoy. All right, guys, so here we are. So I know, just looking at this from a bird's eye view, that it might seem like very complex, a lot of information that's going to be thrown at you, but I promise you, once I go through every single step and kind of break it down into as much detail as possible, and just break it down into a very digestible way, everything is going to make complete sense for you, because I go through all like different examples too on how you can actually implement things and go over again the exact process. Like you can literally follow through with this video, just implement your numbers, and then have all your programming, your calories or macros, all of that set up for you so you can start making the crazy progress. Let's go over quickly the agenda here. I'm going to start with going over just a high level overview and like kind of philosophy around my training, my approach to calories, nutrition, all of that. I'm going to go over that really briefly. Number 2 and 3 are going to basically be the meat and potatoes of this entire video, going over my step-by-step approach when it comes to training, nutrition, routine, etc. All of that in very much in good detail. So there's going to be no confusion there. And number 3, probably one of the most important aspects of this video is going to be how you can actually implement this yourself, because it's one thing if I just came on here and gave you all the information and kind of expected you to be able to implement it without me actually showing you how to implement it. I mean, yes, that could give you some value, but actually showing you how you can implement this yourself is going to just make this video that much more valuable for me. So why am I doing this? I don't know. Why not? Okay. So, and then number 4, the last thing I'm going to be going over is how to maintain your results forever without feeling super restrictive. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to get in shape. The goal should not be just to get in shape. The goal should be able to stay in shape, of course. Like if you just lose 50 pounds, great. But you don't want to regain 30 to 50 pounds and then just have to go through the same process again. No. So I'm going to show you exactly how you can maintain your results forever without feeling restricted, because the last thing I want to do is give you guys some sort of system or approach that isn't something that's sustainable for you. I'm all about sustainability. Again, I've been doing this for 8+ years, almost 9 years now at this point. So I've lived life myself, and I really, at the end of the day, I'm a huge advocate of sustainability and just making the process as enjoyable as possible. Not only like during the actual process of shredding fat itself, but also when it comes down to keeping your results. Like I said, you want to make sure you're able to keep your result and not have to fall back and go back to square one and have to repeat the process again. That is going to be what we're going over in this video. Really quick before I do, again, I just want to show you guys some transformations that have gone through this exact process. So this is me literally peak bulk last February. This is me just like a week and a half ago, around 206 pounds. I think I've dropped another 2-ish pounds since then, but it works. That's mine. That's my transformation. This is my client Luke, lost 35 pounds in the span of 4 months. Client Vaughn lost about 30 pounds lost 20 pounds in about like, I think 10 weeks ish. Client Joel lost 41 pounds. And I believe this one was 4 months, 5 months, somewhere around there. So these are all transformations, just a few of the transformations that have been done using this exact approach. I know what you're probably initially thinking is that, oh, this only works for him because he's been doing it for so long. He doesn't know how to apply it to anyone else. Actually, I do. I've done this many times for myself and other people. That is why I'm confident that if you take the information in this video yourself and implement it, that you can see results just like my client. Here we go. Let's get into it. First, let's go over the approach overview. So I'm a huge advocate of tracking and controlling every variable, like when it comes to training, nutrition, daily expenditure, recovery. All of those things need to be tracked and considered because you want to make sure what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is consistent. What really all of that stems back to is just having a routine that is sustainable. Like I'll go through my routine really quick. So my routine is something that I've kind of adjusted over time. Of course, it changes depending on what my schedule is and kind of what my workload is. But right now, my current routine, I do fasted cardio in the morning, get 2 meals in, medium carb, high carb, workout, post-workout meal, 4, 5, night walk, meal 6, go to bed. And I kind of have my carbs and calories structured out this way. I'll show you kind of what that looks like for you specifically, but that's just kind of how I have my day scheduled, my routine scheduled. When it comes to training, my training philosophy is actually very simple. It's high intensity, low volume, focusing more on the quality of the workouts as opposed to the quantity. So this means that your workouts are really only 45 to 60 minutes max, and you're going to the gym. I would say minimum 4 times per week, but if you can push it to 5, maybe even 6, again, it depends on your experience level, but your workouts themselves should really only typically be 45 to 60 minutes. Nutrition. So of course, you want to we're going to be focusing on a calorie deficit. However, my approach is a little bit different because I focus more on a weekly deficit as opposed to a daily deficit. Sometimes I'll implement carb cycling depending on what my goal is situation is. Sometimes I will implement a system called Calorie Banking, which again focuses on a weekly deficit. And I'll go into more details on what that actually is in particular when we get into the video, a little bit more into it. Food variety. I always focus on a majority of whole foods. However, there are ways to go about making quote unquote junk food healthy just with making some slight substitutes, slight alternatives. So you're not feeling super restrictive. Because again, at the end of the day, like not everyone is able to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice 6 times a day in order to make good progress. Like, does it work? Absolutely. Absolutely. We're eating super clean like that works wonders. But the thing is, where the issue with that is from the sustainability standpoint. So you want to make sure you're finding foods that are primarily whole foods, and it doesn't hurt to throw in some processed food here and there. Just don't make it a habit, of course, or do like way too consistently. Because at the end of the day, it's all about balance, it's sustainability, and not feeling restrictive. As far as daily expenditure goes, when it comes to cardio, doing zone 2 cardio and or focusing on step count. Zone 2 cardio, in case you don't know, it's just keeping your heart rate between 120 and 135 beats per minute. It's not taxing on your central nervous system. It's not going to accumulate too much fatigue unless you do like way too much cardio than it potentially could. Yeah, doing a zone 2 cardio or focusing on step count. And if you do both at the same time, like I said, what I do like 30 to 40 minutes of fast cardio in the morning, then I go on walks at night, pull both of those levers, then you can even make quicker progress. But again, I would say you could either do one or the other or do both, or maybe when you get deeper into the cut, start doing both. But again, we'll kind of play that by ear. So as far as recovery goes, I don't really recommend refeeds super early on in the cut unless you absolutely need to. Like if you need refeeds after about 4 to 6 weeks of your cut, then you are pushing way too hard and need to take your foot off the gas a little bit, because if you're already needing refeeds, already feeling flat and weak that early on, you're doing some things wrong and you need to kind of increase your calories more, whether it be lower your cardio, just do something to prevent that from happening. Because I haven't started implementing refeeds until literally like a week ago, which means I think I went like 14 weeks without refeeds, and I was fine up until then. And once I started implementing refeeds, complete game changer. So the goal of the idea behind refeeds that you replenish your glycogen stores and also just give yourself a mental break too. And it also just gives you something to look forward to. Like if you're pushing super hard for a few days and you got a refeed tomorrow, it just makes the motivation to stay on track leading up to the refeed so much higher, because refeeds are like, if you're super depleted, super shredded, and you have a refeed the next day, it's such a good feeling. Like it's honestly makes there's been so many instances where I find myself almost wanting to cheat on my nutrition, go on maybe a small binge or something like that. But then I just psychologically tell myself that I have a refeed the next day. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can hold off. Just having that in place as well not only helps with recovery, but also just helps with your mental in a way. That's kind of the general approach overview. So let's go into the step-by-step approach. This is where you guys really want to pay attention. Make sure you have your notes. Make sure you have your phone on do not disturb. This is where it gets good. All right, so calculating your calories and macros. To start, you can use a TDEE calculator, and this is honestly something that I do recommend if you have no idea how much you should be eating. Just literally put your stats in, hit calculate it, and it's going to give you some general idea. Again, it's just a general starting point. If it's not working for you right off the bat, then of course just make the proper adjustments as needed. But I'm not going to do this right here on this video because I already did it in the example. I'll show that in a second. But basically, I'll put this link in the description here. It's usually, if you even just type in TDE calculator, it's the first one that comes up usually. But you just put in your information, just give a general idea on your body fat, click calculate, and it's going to give you some general maintenance calories. Macros. So protein, keep 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and do not count trace protein. If you don't know what trace protein are, it would just be like the small, tiny amount of protein that's in like oats or like rice or something like that. It's not going to be like, it's not necessarily going to be a complete protein. I always count all my protein is going to be coming from actual protein sources like Greek yogurt, egg whites, chicken, beef, things like that. That's where I count my protein. Make sure your 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is coming from actual protein sources. Even protein powder works. Carbs are going to be remaining calories. I'll show what that looks like in a second. Fats are going to be roughly about 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. Again, not counting trace fats. So it's going to be coming from actual fat sources: peanut butter, healthy oils, healthy nuts, things like that. One thing that you guys should keep in mind, or that if in case you don't know, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories, 1 gram of carb is 4 calories, 9 calories per gram of fat. That'll make sense why I have this here in a second. So at this point, you should have your calories and your general idea on what your maintenance calories should be. So in this example here, this is where I'm gonna walk you through how you can implement this yourself. So let's just use it for example, like someone who's a guy who's 210 pounds, moderate exercise throughout the week, 18% body fat. He wants to lose weight. His maintenance calories roughly is going to be about 3,000. What we want to do from there is, of course, we're going to start by calculating the protein. So if he's 200 pounds, that's just going to be 200 grams of protein. Very simple. So next, what you want to do is find out how many calories are going to be coming from protein. Remember how I said that there is 4 calories per gram of protein? So basically all you do is just times 200 by 4, and that's how you get 800 calories coming from protein. Okay, so when it comes to fat, again, remember how I said we're doing 0.3 grams of fat per pound of body weight. So again, we're going to times that by 200 because 200 pounds, it's going to come out to 60. Then from there, so remember how I mentioned it was 9 calories per gram of fat. So you just times 60 and then you get 540 calories coming from fat. The calories coming from protein and fats are going to equate to 1,340. Oh, I also forgot to mention, this is the rough maintenance. This is the rough maintenance calories for this individual. This example, we're just going to subtract 500 right at the bat. Because again, what you find or what you get in the TDE calculator isn't always 100% accurate. So I don't mind overshooting the deficit a little bit just because it seems that the calculator overshoots the amount of calories for maintenance. So I always just do 500 to start and just kind of see how that goes. And if it doesn't work, just make proper adjustments as needed after a couple weeks. That's going to put the calories for this individual to start off his deficit, start off his cut at 2,564. What we want to do, since we have the calories coming from protein and fat, you want to subtract the calories coming from protein and fats coming from the total calories that this guy was going to be eating per day, which is going to be 1,224 calories coming from carbs. And again, as I mentioned, it's 4 calories per gram of carb. So you just divide the amount of calories coming from carbs divided by 4, and that's 306. It's a lot of numbers coming at you at once, but let me walk you through how to do this again. You find your TDE, your maintenance calories, you subtract 500, you get the amount of calories coming from protein, the amount of calories coming from fat, you add those up together, and then you take the calories that you're going to be eating every day after you like the calories for your cut, so your maintenance minus 500, subtract that by the calories coming from protein and fats, and then you get the amount of calories coming from carbs, and then you divide that by 4. The macros are for this guy or the starting totals for him are going to be 2,564 calories, 200 grams of protein, 306 carb, 60 fat. Again, these are all just rough ideas. Like if you get like, I don't know, 315 carb in one day, or like 190 protein and like 40, I don't know, just, you don't have to be like exact, but these are all just kind of general guidelines that you should be following when you're hitting your daily targets for calories and macros. So that's how you find your calories and macros. I know it's might be a little bit complex, but if you need to watch that over again, go over it or redo so. Okay, so step 2. Let's go over the meal frequency and distribution. Let's put back here the calories and macros that we're working with for this example. I just kind of tied this back into what it would look like if this was me in my calories and macros that I was eating, or someone very similar. I think I only did like 5 meals per day. Yeah, 5 meals per day. So something similar, kind of similar to my routine. You'd start off the day doing fasted cardio. Meal 1 is going to be moderate carb. Moderate carb, I mean, again, it's going to be dependent upon how many total carbs you eat in that given day. Protein, I will say first with protein, what I like to do is space it out as evenly as possible. Since this guy's only eating 5 meals, or since this guy's eating 5 meals per day, 5 divided by 200 is 40. That's going to be about 40 grams of protein per meal. So moderate carb, it's really going to be dependent upon how many carbs you're having in a given day. So carbs I just put 60 for this first meal. Fats are going to be 15. So I like to have the first meal kind of a little bit more balanced when it comes to carbs and fats, and of course protein too. And that's going to be the total calories. Again, I just went through the simple calculations of timesing the protein grams by the amount of calories per gram of protein, and just subsequently with carbs and fats. That came out to 535 calories for meal 1. Meal 2, since this is in this example, it's going to be a pre-workout meal. It's going to be a higher carb meal. Again, keeping protein relatively the same, higher carbs, and then 0 fats. The reason why I do zero fats on the pre and post workout meal is just because I want something that's going to digest super quick. And when you have fats in your pre and post workout meals, that is going to slow down the digestion of your carbs a little bit. So I like to have my carbs in and the insulin spike and the glycogen storage as quickly as possible pre and post workout to not only aid in or not only help with the actual gym performance itself, but also when you go into the post workout and replenish your glycogen stores as quickly as possible, it's just going to help speed up that recovery process by that much. The calories for meal two are going to be about 560. You go to the gym, then at the after you have your highest carb meal of the day, which is going to be 120 grams in this case. Again, zero fats for the reason that I just talked about earlier. Going to come out to about 640 calories, protein, carbs, and then meal four is going to be like a lower carb meal with a little bit extra fat, coming out to around 400 calories. And then, for example, like if this person's going on a walk, you'd have your last meal after your walk or a little bit after your walk at some point. Going to be no carbs, 30 grams of fat, like higher fat meal because you want something that's going to digest a little bit slower. I like having something that digests a little bit slower right before bed. Not right before bed, I should say, because that can disrupt sleep, but maybe an hour to an hour and a half before bed. I like to have a majority of my fats. So that's going to put the calories there. In this example, this is how I would structure out my macros, my calories. If I was doing 5 meals per day, if I was working with these calories and macros. What you can do in your situation, how you implement this yourself, is map out your routine. If you want to do cardio in the morning, great. Put fasted cardio. You have your first meal. Maybe then you have your second meal, maybe you have your third meal. But just what you should keep in mind when applying this to yourself is that your pre and post workout meals are going to be the highest carb meals of the day. Actually, in particular, your post workout is going to be the highest carb meal of the day. First meal of the day is going to be a moderate carb meal, relatively balanced between carbs and fats. Your proteins are going to be distributed evenly across how many meals you're having. I don't recommend going less than 4 meals per day. Ideally, it would be 5 or 6. So you would space that out. And then at the end of the day, you would have your like a higher fat meal. And if you go to the gym, like at the end of the day, I would still recommend doing the pre and post workout high carb meals. It's not going to be the end of the world. I would say just maybe push your fats earlier in the day. Again, you're going to have to kind of play around with it depending on what your schedule is, because everyone is different. And that's literally what I do for all my clients. What we do together is map out their routine, map out their schedule, and then we do this together, or I do this together with them, and figuring out what is going to be the best approach for optimizing their calories, their macros, and meal distribution based on their goals and their situation. Hopefully that all makes sense. So as far as rest days go, very simple. I always just go off the framework of just reducing carbs by like keeping protein and fats the same, just reducing carbs by about 2/3. All that's going to do is just drop your calories by typically 3 to maybe 500. I mean, you don't really need as many carbs on your rest days just because, of course, you're not going to the gym. You're not depleting glycogen stores as much as you would be as if you actually went to the gym and worked out. That's kind of the frame of mind or general idea when it comes to rest days. Just reduce your carbs by about 2/3. And it's not only that, it's just also going to help kind of keep you in a steeper deficit too. So just keep that in mind on rest days. Let's go over the training. So frequency, workout, or training frequency, workout structure, and intensity. So this is actually a pretty relatively simple part of the process, I would say. Like if you just hit the main check boxes when it comes to the frequency, structure, and intensity, you're good to go. Like you can really get away with quite a lot in the gym. I mean, I won't say a lot, but you can have a lot of flexibility when it comes to working out. You can have some flexibility when it comes to the nutrition side of things too, but I would still recommend being as meticulous as possible with the nutrition, because the nutrition at the end of the day is going to be the thing that drives the most amount of progress. And it's honestly I would say it's the most important aspect of losing fat in general, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's where 99% of people fuck up. If you need to rewatch that part on nutrition, I recommend you do, because again, it was a lot of information thrown at you. But let's get into the training now. So frequency, you want to hit each muscle group around 1.5 to 2 times per week. What I mean by like 1.5, like an example would be if you're doing chest, shoulders, back, traps, arms, legs, rest, you'd be hitting each muscle group 1.5-ish times per week. And it's plenty to get the job done. That's really what I do for myself, but it's kind of just what I like to do, to say, and it works for me. What I did for, I would say, a majority, like 80% of my fitness journey, my time lifting, is push-pull legs, and that's what I recommend for like I would say most people, I would say, because you're hitting each muscle group with like every single week, twice per week, and giving enough rest in between hitting each muscle group. You want to give each muscle group at least 48 to 72 hours before hitting it again. Sometimes you might need to do a little bit more if you're super sore on like a leg day or something like that. You might need an extra rest day, but that's kind of one of those things where you just have to listen to your body and kind of play it by ear. You could also do like a upper lower split, upper lower rest, do something like that. I know a lot of people do that. I'm not a huge fan of it. I've always just preferred doing like the first split I mentioned or PPL, but you could get away with that and still make some good progress. But again, the split isn't as important. Again, as long as you're following the framework or the idea that you are hitting each muscle group 1.5 to 2 times per week. So when it comes to workout structure, the structure that I follow is going to be like, when it comes to like exercise selection as well, it's going to be compound movement followed by isolation, compound movement, isolation. What I mean by that is, let's say you're doing, like, for example, like right there on the screen, you're doing, let's say like it's a chest and shoulder workout. So you would do a chest press followed by chest fly, which is compound isolation. Then you would do shoulder press, which is a compound, followed by lateral raise, which is an isolation. Does that make sense? So you would do a compound movement for one specific muscle group, an isolation for that same muscle group, compound movement for that specific muscle group, for the next muscle group, and then isolation for that same muscle group. Hopefully that makes sense. So compound isolation, compound isolation. As far as numbers of exercises, so it's going to be one, maybe, I mean, 3 might be pushing it. I would say 1 to 2 is ideal. You could get away with 3 depending on what the exercise is. 1 to 3, the number of exercises should be 1 to 3 max. I would say 1 to 2 ideally per muscle group per workout. 1 to 2 compound movements and 1 isolation for each muscle group for each workout. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's go over the sets and reps. Again, I like to follow the philosophy of high intensity, low volume, or I would say maybe this is like moderate volume, you could argue. I do 2 sets, 8 to 12 reps. That's typically what I do. It's kind of the sweet spot I always found. You could get away with doing a little bit more like 3 sets, 10 to 15. I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, if you have extra time and you just want to spend extra time in the gym, you could get away with that. But I would say like if you're doing a 3rd set, you really got to question how intense your previous 2 sets are. If you're able to do like more than 2 sets. You could also do like, 2 sets, 5 to 7 reps. That works too. The rep, quote unquote ideal rep range for hypertrophy is very wide. It's a very big range. I can't remember exactly what it is, but if you're getting at least 5 to 6 reps with the proper form and intensity, you're still going to be able to initiate some muscle breakdown, muscle growth, etc. I just wouldn't personally go below 5, honestly. I mean, maybe I'm sure there are studies out there that say you can do less than 5 and see good progress as far as muscle building. But again, I'd rather be safe than sorry and just do what works, which has always been 8 to 12. Intensity, this is the number one. Intensity and progressive overload are the number one drivers of progress when it comes to the gym. You have to make sure your intensity is there. I know I talked about how earlier that you just want to make sure that there are a few boxes checked when it comes to training in order to make progress. Intensity and progressive overload are by far the most important. Like if you're going to take away anything from this video when it comes to training, take away intensity and progressive overload. Exercise selection, frequency, all of that is, yes, very important, but intensity and progressive overload are significantly more important. So you want to train to complete failure. I know some people don't agree with this. You want to train to complete failure within that desired rep range. I know some people say you can get away with training reps in reserve. Like, yeah, maybe you can, but I'm one of those people who I would rather just stick to what works and what has been working this entire time, and that's going to failure. And also when it comes to training with a rep in reserve, most people don't know what training the true failure looks like unless you've been doing it for years and years. What someone thinks is 1 rep in reserve could be 2 or 3, which is obviously not going to be as advantageous when it comes to initiating hypertrophy if you're doing 2 to 3 reps in reserve on your working sets. So go to complete failure within the desired rep range. So how to utilize the progressive overload? My philosophy with this: you want to hit failure within desired rep range, as I just mentioned. Okay, so let's say you hit failure beyond the desired rep range. Let's say you're doing chest press, you get 13 reps. So what you want to do, like say for example, it's on your first set. What you want to do on that same session on your next working set, like you could probably keep the same weight, but since your intensity was there on that first set, you could probably keep the same weight, but you'd probably only be able to do like 10 to 11 reps. So that would be good. That would be fine. But what you want to do on again, this is for like the same session. You want to keep the same weight, and then you shouldn't be able to get outside of the rep range again if your intensity was there in that first set. What you want to do in the next session, the next workout for that given day, is increase the working weight by 5 to 10 pounds. So again, for example, if you hit chest press for 13 reps, what you want to do the next time you do that exercise is increase the weight on your working set by 5 to 10 pounds. And let's say, for example, you increase the weight by 5 to 10 pounds and you get 11 reps. You want to keep that same weight until you can get 12 or 13 reps. Then just keep repeating that same process. You stick with the weight until you can get more than 12 reps or more. Once you get 12 reps or more, you increase the weight. And just keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And that means you have to pretty much keep doing the same exercises for a pretty long period of time. The only time I really recommend changing up the exercises is if you're like at a complete plateau, like you're doing your sleep, you have your sleep, nutrition, everything else is on point, and you're still not progressing on that given exercise after, I would say, like 6, maybe 8 weeks, then you can maybe look into different exercises. But in 99% of cases, you don't really need to change up exercises as much as people think. Like I've been doing the same exercises for, I mean, months, I would say. I mean, I'm cutting now, so I'm not going to be progressive. I'm pretty lean right now, so I'm not really going to be able to progressive overload just with the amount of calories I'm eating. That's just kind of the name of the game. But when I was bulking, I did the same exercises pretty much the entire bulk. And I just continue to progressive overload on those and saw phenomenal progress. Keep that in mind. Going over training again, really quickly. So what you want to keep in mind is that you have progressive overload and intensity in check. Yes, number of exercises, and you don't want to be doing too many exercises. You don't want to be building up too much fatigue. Yes, you want to make sure you're hitting each muscle group 1.5 to 2 times per week. Yes, it's important to do the compound isolation structure. But what's most important is making sure that you have the right intensity and that you're utilizing progressive overload properly. Hopefully that makes sense. So now we've gone over nutrition, pretty much everything you need to know about the process when it comes to nutrition. Went over workouts. So now let's just say, like, hypothetically, you finish your cut, you were applying all those things, you got down to the ideal body fat percentage that you wanted. And of course, like, over time, you're going to hit just natural plateaus, and you just have to know to make sure the right adjustments are made when needed. Like if you are plateaued at a certain weight for 10 to 14 days, I would say, just lower your calories a little bit by 200 to 300, up your cardio by 10-ish minutes. And that should initiate more additional fat loss. And just kind of keep the deficit going. But again, that's kind of where you have to really make sure that you are tracking your body weight as well every morning. I forgot to mention that, but make sure you're tracking your body weight every morning after you use the bathroom and before you eat or drink anything. Like literally put it in a spreadsheet. That's what I do for myself, and all my clients have access to an app so they can see it like a graph form. But what I do for myself is I literally have an Excel spreadsheet. I have the date, I have my weight, average it out for a week, see what my average weight was for that week compared to the previous week. And if I didn't lose the amount of weight that I wanted to lose, then I'll make an adjustment, if that makes sense. So make sure you're tracking your body weight as well. I forgot to mention that earlier on, but that is going to be essential when it comes to making linear progress and avoiding plateaus. You either, track your stuff or, have someone do it for you. Let's go into reverse. So this is where we're starting to step into the idea of sustainability and keeping your result. What you want to do is recalculate your TDEE. I mean, it's going to be kind of similar, roughly. I just put in the same example here. Let's just say this guy went down from 18 to 10% body fat. His new maintenance, keeping everything else consistent. Yeah, so this guy, I dropped down, like he lost 8% body fat, which is going to put him at 10% body fat, which is going to put him at 184 pounds. So his maintenance calories is going to be about 3,100. What you want to do in this situation is just go back to your maintenance calories. I know, like, it's like, I mean, just imagine that being 10% body fat, like you've done all the hard work and then being 10% body fat, but then being able to eat 3,100 calories per day. That's not bad. That's not bad. Like literally what I'm doing right now is I'm eating around, like, cause I'm at maintenance now. I've got completely shredded. I'm like 7-8% body fat. I cut pretty hard for like the last 14-15 weeks. So I'm literally eating like 3,300. I mean, I could probably bump it up a little bit more, but right now I'm literally eating like 3,300 calories on my training days, 2,700, 2,800 on my rest days. So it's not bad. Like once your body readjusts to eating at the caloric maintenance and you have the right body composition that you want, maintaining is significantly easier than getting in that in the first place. Like that is something I really preach to a lot of people. Unless you get like completely stage lean, then that's a different story. But we're not going over how to get stage lean. We're just trying to get like shredded, like 8 to 10%. So like I said, increase calories back to maintenance. What this is going to do is reduce your hunger, reduce your fatigue. It might take a week or two, but when you stick with it, you are going to start to feel a lot better, but you're going to keep the results that you have. As far as macros go, you want to keep your protein the same. Carbs and fats, you can have a little bit more flexibility. I still recommend following the same kind of general structure, that guidelines that I went over previously, just having your highest carb meals pre and post workouts, and then structuring out your protein evenly throughout the day. I still recommend keeping those general guidelines, but you can have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to the carbs and fats at this point, I would say. Because again, we're like the maintenance phase, or like reverse dieting and eating at maintenance. Like we're not trying to lose or gain weight, so you can have a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to be quote unquote optimal with your macro distribution. Cardio, again, it kind of depends on how much you've been doing, like cardio and steps, but I would say just titrate down 5 minutes every week and just see what happens. Like for example, if you're doing like 45 minutes of fast cardio in the morning and you're still eating at your quote unquote maintenance, what you might still even lose a little bit of weight. I mean, if your fatigue is super high, then I would cut down the cardio a little bit faster. But I would say start even just by slowly just lowering the cardio, and over time, again, your body's gonna adjust. Like I'm personally someone who likes doing cardio in the morning, so I always keep 30 minutes fasted every single morning. But if you hate doing cardio, by all means, eventually you could titrate it down to 0 and do no cardio and be eating at maintenance and being completely shredded. That's just how this process can work. So again, but everything has to be as consistent as possible. You have to make sure that you are doing things properly. You actually make sure you're applying the same concepts and principles I went over with the training, that you're not slacking off, you're not going on a bunch of binges. Make sure that you're still consistent with everything. Again, as I mentioned, maintaining is significantly easier than getting there in the first place. That is the reverse dieting. So the next step is going to be keeping your results forever and making the process sustainable. So remember I was talking about calorie banking. So this is a system that is very, very beneficial when it comes to having cheat meals or just special events with friends, holidays, things like that, to make sure you're not ruining your progress, you're not falling off track completely. So the definition here is you're just saving calories to enjoy higher calories or treats without compromising the overall calorie goal. So again, this is focusing on a weekly calorie approach. Of course, like when you have a massive cheat meal or something like that, it's going to put you in a surplus. So when you focus on a weekly calorie deficit and have or I should say, like in this situation, weekly calorie maintenance, we focus on weekly calorie maintenance. When you have a massive cheat meal on a given day, obviously that's going to put you in a surplus. So what you want to do the days prior is be in a deficit. Or if you have a random binge or something that comes up out of nowhere and you weren't able to prepare the few days before, you could do something called reverse banking, and I'll go over examples for both. So it's basically a way to make the process or the keeping your results forever very sustainable by giving you some additional flexibility, so you can go out, you can go party, you can go eat out and not have to worry about ruining your progress, because you're going to have the systems in place to be able to maintain your results. Let's go over an example. Let's keep using the same example. Eating 3,100 calories per day. I already did the math. It's going to be about 440 grams of carbs. Kept the fat the same, and then 200 grams of protein still. I didn't change the protein. I just kept the protein about the same. I mean, you could lower the protein down to like 184, up the carbs or fats a little bit, but it's not like the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't hurt to overshoot your protein a little bit. But yeah, those are going to be the calories and macros we're going to be working with this example. Okay, so let's go over this example here. So let's say you are on Friday, you're going to have a cheat meal, or like you're going to go out, it's a friend's birthday, it's a wedding or something, and you know you're going to overeat. So what you can do on what you would do on Wednesday and Thursday is literally just drop your calories coming from carbs on those given days to bank up calories. So like, as I said, mentioned right here, calories banked. Those calories came from carbs. Remember how it was about an average per day, 440 carbs on normal days? What you're going to do is drop down the calories coming from carbs, or just in this situation, all I did was just drop the calories by 500 and then just drop the all those calories coming from carbs, which came out to about 315 calories, or sorry, 350 grams of carbs, which is going to put the calories, total calories right here, which equals 2,600. Calories banked 500. Do that same thing on Thursday. Calories banked 500. What this is going to do is give you an additional 1,000 calories on Friday for that special event. So you can have an additional 1,000 calories for the wedding, for the birthday, for the gathering, whatever it is. You have an extra 1,000 calories to play with, and in 99% of cases, that's plenty. If you need more calories, just do the exact same. Just do this, but bank even more calories. Or even if you go over, like say for example, you even banked 1,000 calories, but you ate 1,500. You could do reverse banking, and that's what this looks like. You could just literally, you have the cheat meal, you overeat one day, then on the following days, you drop your calories. You drop your calories by 500. I mean, of course, like when you have a cheat meal, it's going to be hard to know exactly how much you ate, so you kind of have to use like your general judgment on that. When you do, like you can use a combination of both. So you banked up 500, those 2 days, but you still overate, so you'd probably even need to bank up another, couple hundred. And then just do the same thing on the following day. And then you just basically drop your calories, or just have your calories a little bit lower until you're back to where your weight was before the event, if that makes sense. Like, let's say, for example, in this situation, this guy's holding out at 140 or 184 pounds. He has the cheat meal. He goes up to, I don't know, 187. But again, it's just like mostly water weight. So those following 2 days, he's going to cut the calories down by 500. I mean, 500 is just an example. It could be more, it could be a little bit less. Cut those calories by 500. until he gets back down to 184 pounds. Once he's back down to 184 pounds, goes back up to maintenance. So he had that cheat meal, nothing went wrong. Didn't regress at all. All he did was basically save up calories, have the cheat meal, and then that's it. Like, act like nothing happened. Like, for example, if he had the cheat meal and then didn't use calorie banking at all and ate at maintenance, he's going to be at a weekly surplus. Therefore, he's going to be gaining a very small, I mean, it's very minute. I mean, depending on how big the cheat meal is, but it's going to be at a very small surplus. So that is the concept of calorie banking. So hopefully all of that makes sense. That is my entire process of getting completely shredded. I know, again, it's a lot of information. I was probably speaking fast, but again, this is the entire process that I use for myself, because at the end of the day, when it comes to losing fat, getting in shape, everything is calculated. The more variables you calculate and control, the better results are going to be. That's just the way it is. Like, that's why I have my clients track so many different metrics of progress, because I want to get a complete picture of everything that's going on. And when I have a complete picture of everything that's going on, it just makes it that much easier for make the proper adjustments as needed to ensure that they're making progress on a consistent basis. And of course, I do it for myself. Like, if I wasn't applying the same principles for myself, for my clients, they would not be getting the same results, getting insanely shredded super quick. That wraps it up for this video, guys. I know, like I said, I know it's a lot. So if you guys have questions, I recommend you DM me on Instagram. I mean, I'll read my YouTube comments as well, but I'm way more active on Instagram. So my Instagram is, I'll pop it up on the screen and link it down in the description too. It's devind.fit. Ask me any questions there. I'd be happy to help. And if you guys want to see what working with me would look like, I do have a coaching application down in the description below. You could jump on a call, see if we're a good fit for the team. I don't take on too many clients at once, just because, again, I want to make sure the clients that I have, I give them the necessary time they need. So I'm not one of those coaches who just brings on everyone just to have as many clients as possible, because I like to provide a quality service for all my clients. But anyway, that's a side note. That is it for this video, guys. If you guys, like I said, if you have any questions, if you need help, if you have a specific question on how to implement this yourself, like if you watch this video and have a specific question on how you can implement this yourself, literally just DM me on Instagram. I'll see if I can help. Like, I don't mind at all. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I know it's been a little bit of a long one. Again, a lot of value. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.